this is also a link that is published on our website. Okay, there's Megan.
The camera's much broader now than it was.
Hello.
Excellent. Hi. How are you?
I'm doing okay.
I'm sorry you're not here, but I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, I'm sorry I can't be there too. I would have liked to be able to meet in person.
And Megan and Marcus, you are here. We also, and I know you just said you get too much with paper, but we do have, these are new member packets. So I will hold yours, Megan, until they come. And they have
Thank you.
almost everything you've ever wanted to know about the library.
That's
And then
awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy to get this. This is good.
So,
Is there a
And-
particular place where I should pick it up when I'm well enough to go out in public?
I can have it held at the, if you go to the first floor reference desk, I can have it held there for you. That
That's
way it's
perfect.
available and you're not limited to the hours at which somebody's an admin.
Thank you.
And Megan, I guess we'll do introductions, but yes, I'm Elizabeth Nicolai. I'm the acting library director.
Nice to meet you, Elizabeth.
Yeah, I wasn't exactly clear about that. The introductions will be a little bit lengthier than just our names because we need to get to know each other. But I'm Christy Willer. We've been communicating.
Yes. Nice to meet you, Christy. I'm Megan Castiola.
Excellent. And we are anticipating it by just a few minutes, so.
Okay.
Thank you so much for sending those last two items. I'm really looking forward to the Mary Roach.
Excellent.
I'm
We are,
definitely going to sign up for that one.
yes, tickets will be just after.
I know, I have it on my calendar. First day you can buy tickets. I tend to go to Arctic Entries, which you have to, for many of you
Yes.
Arctic Entries fans, you have to be there a week ahead, ready to push the
Go.
ticket button, or else
Yeah.
in the next 5 seconds, or you'll lose them.
I find all of that very stressful. Anything that's like that time sensitive, I have my husband do, because it's just like, so they're just, that one and, registering my children for junior Nordic skiing.
Oh, yeah.
Because it fills up within 2 minutes of it opening.
Wow.
Or the state huts that go out for
Mhm,
lottery, yeah.
mhm.
You know, I don't like that feeling.
Or the ludicrous concert at State Fair.
We didn't try to get that one.
Okay.
We went
But
to the fair 2 days ago, though,
Yeah.
without ludicrous, but it was pretty, I mean, I can't believe the weather this preceding week was scheduled to be perfectly dreadful when my grandchildren were all visiting, and I was miserable about that, and it turned on a
Turned out
dime.
nice.
It
yeah.
turned out very nice. So we kept them outside as much as we could.
Mhm,
The clouds were quite beautiful.
mhm. I understand that they added a ludicrous.
That was that right?
They did 2 concerts and they still managed to
Still
complete.
sold out like that. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Did you go to that, Mark?
No, it was sold out. So
It was just an example.
it was just that, yeah, there's so many things in Alaska now, like when I worked in Fairbanks, one of my coworkers told me I should go to the chicken stock. Do you know what that
Oh,
is?
yeah. Yeah.
Sells out within 30 minutes in like January, February. So, you know, so many things like that that'd be fun to do, but you just can't do it. No.
I'm very curious, for us, I think because I have younger children right now, it's all of the children's like the camps and things that fill up so quickly. And I'm curious because I haven't heard the official announcement yet, or maybe I did, and I forgot, but like Junior Nordic, literally to get into ski filled up within 2 minutes and
Does that
crashed
mean-
to the website.
That means some kids don't get a ski?
Yeah, well, I mean, not through Junior Nordic. I think
Oh.
the Muni has one, or you can always just ski with your family. But yeah, like they can't. They are running giant crews at 3 different parks because there's one at Service High School, there's one over in Russ and Jack, and there's one over in Kincaid. And so they're running them 6 days a week, or 5 to 6 days a week. So they're doing a ton, but it's, you know, I'm very curious now that the 6th graders have moved up to middle school and have the ability to ski with their middle school team, if they'll restrict them off of, you know, junior Nordic only goes up till middle school ski team. So maybe that'll open up some more of the younger kids.
The only thing that's good about all that is that there's that much interest in skiing. So that's always, whenever I go to a trail and it's busy, I'm like, well, at least people like to hike in Anchorage, you know, so that's kind of a good thing.
So, yeah, it's a great program. My children adore it. So.
Well, and it's like one of the, I hear that all of the after school care options are just slammed. All of them.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And this is not even, but every lesson, it's whether it's like a formal aftercare that provides like childcare or the lessons,
right.
They all are.
Yeah.
Everything. And the summer camps are the same ways.
Hmm.
So.
I'm just here making sure that my phone is on and operating if anybody is calling.
Do we know if the other members are joining?
Deb said she'd be calling in,
So here is somebody.
is happening.
Okay.
And I haven't heard from Rachel, who's the other member.
Hello, can you hear us? Hello, can you hear us?
Hello, this is Rachel, by the way.
Hi, Rachel.
Rachel.
And is that also
Hello?
Mrs. Bronson?
Yes, my internet is down. I'm glad I saw the phone number. I don't know what's going on with my internet.
Okay.
And
Well,
apparently, my phone doesn't like Teams unless I have internet. I don't know. Go figure. I need a short person to help me.
Well, I'm a short person, but I'm here, not there, so.
Oh.
All right, we can hear both of
Anyway.
you.
Good. Oh, good.
And to my extraordinary relief and enthusiasm, everybody who's here at this meeting, we have a quorum, so I'm going to call us to order.
Oh my goodness.
I know. I'll do a road call for our new members. Part of our tradition has been that I just run a roll call, and at that point you can tell us what you're reading and whether it's a recommendation or not. So Deb, you know the drill, so I'll start with you.
Oh, see, now I'm looking for my book. So Deb Bronson, I'm here, and I'm reading The 12 Lives of Holly something. And it's interesting. It's a back and forth thing. So I'm not done yet.
Okay, so we'll hear more about that later. Megan, what are you reading?
Hi, I'm Megan Cassiola, and I am reading Farewell Waltz by Milan Kundera right now. And it's a product of its time and place. I really like it, but it's not going to be for everyone.
Thanks. How about you, Mark?
So I had a business trip to Fairbanks last week, and Alaska Airlines lost my luggage. So I'd have to read at nighttime. So I went to Fred Meyer, and the only thing I could find that I wanted to read was a Stephen King novel. So I got a new 800-page Stephen King novel called Fairy Tale, which I'm really enjoying it. But then I like Stephen King more than I should. So I don't know if I'd recommend it to everyone. I like it.
Thanks. Rachel, glad to hear you, if not to see you.
Hello.
Yes, I'm Rachel. I want to recommend really fast Stephen King's book. It's called On Writing, and it's like half autobiography, half like just his thoughts about writing in general. It's fascinating. It was such a good read for me. So you'd probably love that one if you haven't read it already.
I haven't, but
I'm reading.
yeah, I think
read
I
it?
should. I have not, but I've heard a lot of good things about it.
Yeah, it's good.
Oh, good. Yes, highly recommend. I am reading The Brave Learner. So I have little kids and I'm looking at homeschooling them, and I'm looking at, that's like kind of a interesting concept of how they learn and what that might look like. So I like it, but that's a very, not a lot of people need to be reading about that. So I'd recommend it if you're interested in homeschooling little kids.
Sounds good. I'm actually rereading Tommy Orange's They're There, because I was able to find at Tidal Wave a large print copy of his new one, which is Wandering Star. I think I might have that wrong. So anyway, that I really wanted to read, but I read They're There about 5 years ago and forgot it. And I know there's some connection, and I really like him. And I just heard that he will be in person at the Kachemak Writers Conference.
Yeah.
Kachemak Bay Writers Conference. So anyway, that's what I am. What do you read?
I am reading, I'm Elizabeth Nicolai, and the acting library director. I am reading Warrior Girl Unearthed by Angeline Booley. And she's an Indigenous writer from the lower 48. And it's kind of got a mystery element, which I don't usually do mystery. And it's about missing and murdered Indigenous women, and sort of also about a teen girl who's trying to find like where she fits in. It's very also kind of a coming of age story as she's getting involved, but also deciding how she chooses to engage with her traditions and her culture versus college and other options, and how all of that can work together. And it's a follow-up to the first book, which I really recommend, which was Firekeeper's Daughter, which kind of also had sort of very similar themes. But it's like this one's set 17 years later. So it is very, very good for that blending of where do you fit within culture as well as this mystery element.
Good. And Rachel, you're
Rebecca.
Rebecca. I'm sorry. My daughter's name is Rachel, so it's on my mind. You reading anything good lately?
I just started a book about dog diabetes because my dog has diabetes and he's not doing very well. So
I'm sorry to hear that, but it sounds like you found a helpful source.
I hope so. We'll see.
Okay. Now the agenda has now to approve the agenda. Let's take this in two parts. So I'll accept a motion to approve the agenda or a suggestion for altering it. I'll say before anybody says anything that these times are very, that I put on it, I just lifted from a past agenda, and this meeting has a lot of catching up to do. So I'm not swearing by the times on this, but does the agenda look all right to everyone? Everybody's nodding.
It looked fine to me.
Okay.
That's good.
The minutes we have to deal with are two sets of minutes. I was in error on that. I thought that the last official meeting we had was in January, and we had minutes for that. The February meeting did not have a quorum, but we had an informational meeting only. So you have received from Elizabeth those. If you've had a chance to look at them, I'd accept a motion to approve one of each of them or one of them at a time, however you like to do that. See, where's my copy?
I'll make a motion to approve both.
Thank you, Megan. Is there a second?
I can second that.
Sorry, who was that?
This is
Rachel.
Deb.
Okay. Sorry, we can't see you, so. All right, it's been moved and seconded to accept the minutes, the January and February minutes of the Library Advisory Board. All in favor, say aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, you've done. I will begin the rest of the agenda by our traditional land acknowledgement. That is that we're gathering this evening on the traditional lands of the Dena'ina Athabascan people, who for more than 1,000 years have been and continue to be stewards of this land. So it is with gratefulness and respect that we recognize the contributions, innovations, and contemporary perspectives of the Upper Cook Inlet Dena'ina people. Next on the agenda, I have introductions. And what I thought we could do, since we have three existing members and 2 new members, if we could just go around and I don't have a particular structure in my mind for this, but it'd be nice to just get to know you. Who are you? What brought you to Alaska? What brought you to the library board? Whatever you'd like to reveal about yourself.
You want me to start?
We'll be meeting regularly. And I'd just like to say hello. I'd like to start. Mark?
Sure, I'll start.
Okay.
So for me, my parents moved here in 1965, and my very youngest, earliest memories are Anchorage libraries. So I live right next to the Sand Lake Library. So as soon as I could ride a bike, I biked there all the time. And then my dad liked to bring me to the Spenard Library, the downtown Lusac Library, Spenard Library. Those are the main ones. And then the consortium library at APU UAA back in the 70s as well. So I've spent my entire life, if I wasn't living here, I'd be, if I was in Fairbanks, I'd be at a Fairbanks library, in Kenai at a Kenai library, Montana at a Montana library, or colleges around the country, wherever I was. So libraries have been, from my earliest years till now, just a fundamental part of my life. I'm still kind of I'll go to the library and just come home with a massive stack of books and then just read them simultaneously, kind of scanning through them. So to this day, I'm still kind of the old generation of liking the paper books around me. So I really want to be part of the Library Advisory Board because it's a big part of who I am, and I'd like to, now that I'm aging quite a bit and my kids are all away, it's a good thing to do with my extra time.
Cool.
That's about it.
Thank you. How about you, Rachel?
Yes, I also have very early memories of going to the library there at the Lusac Library and somersaulting down the hill there. And so that's why, because I'm born and raised in Anchorage. There you go. And so I have fond memories of the library, and I love bringing my kids there now. So let's see, I went to UAA, and I'm on the radio on a couple of radio stations in Anchorage here. So just I'm around the community. I love being a part of the community, and I'm super thankful to be involved in this aspect of the community. So I love the library, and I love Anchorage. So here we are.
Remind me and us what radio shows you are affiliated with.
Yeah, so I'm on Move-In 105.7 from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Monday through Friday, and then from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. I'm on 94.7 Alternative Anchorage. So I'm like the DJ. I get to just say, hey, that was the song, and this is what's going on around town, and here we are. So yeah, it's fun.
Great. How about you, Deb?
Okay. I've lived in Alaska for, we moved up here about 33 or so years ago. And my kids spent a whole bunch of time in the library. My daughter, actually, not my son, oddly, but my daughter would always start her birthdays out at the library because she and the girlfriends that she invited to her party needed some kind of some kind of books for a school project. So, and I substitute taught on occasion, and I always ask all of my junior hires mostly, what are they reading? Because they need to read, not sit on phones. So I've just always loved the library.
Megan.
Thanks. So I've been in Alaska for a little over a decade now. I grew up in Indianapolis, Indiana, and I moved around a lot in my 20s. After college, I was on the East Coast, on the West Coast, and all over the Midwest. And I spent time in every community where I lived at the library there. It was a big way of how I got to know the community. I would, sometimes work from the library if I needed to get away from the office, and I just enjoyed checking out books all the time. One of the things I did towards the end of that period was I've had a few careers, and one of those, I became a middle school teacher, and I was a reading and English learner teacher. And so obviously the library became really central to me from a professional perspective at that point. And when I ended up moving to Alaska, I worked at the Alaska Humanities Forum, and we did a lot of programming in the library and with libraries. And so that connected me to the library in Anchorage. I also just worked a lot from the library. There was one point where I was hiring, and I did all of my interviews from the library because I was hiring an internal candidate, and I didn't want to be doing it in the office. Or one of the people applying for the job was an internal candidate, and so I didn't want there to be the conflict of having people come into the office. So doing it from the library was a really nice way to do that. Yeah, I am now working at the Alaska Community Foundation. And I think it's a really interesting dynamic to have a community foundation that is statewide in a state that is as big and as geographically diverse as Alaska is, because the whole value proposition of community foundations is the local expertise and local network and knowledge. And that's really hard to do on a statewide level, especially in a place like Alaska. As a result, at the Alaska Community Foundation, we're often critiqued. We have our offices in in Anchorage. So we're often critiqued as like, you need to be more statewide, not so Anchorage focused. And I think that the result is that we actually aren't, as an organization, very connected into Anchorage specifically. And I was realizing that despite working at a community foundation right now, I'm not really engaged in Anchorage as a community very well. And how could I get more involved in my local community? And the library seemed like a great place to do that, because I love libraries. I really believe in third places and the importance of them to our civic life. And so I'm excited to have been appointed.
Thank you. Us too. So we moved around a lot when I was a kid. One of those sort of suburban mobile families. Dad worked for Westinghouse, so libraries were my safety. I mean, it was, they didn't look the same in every town, but they all invited me with books and librarians. So I acquired a love of libraries and so that tracks to my, I first came to Alaska in '76 to be an archaeologist on the pipeline.
Mm.
But then but
I'm just listening. I worked for the pipeline, so I've got
oh,
that.
yes, I saw that, LES. I did too. I was an archaeologist.
Very cool.
But then I settled in Alaska, in Dillingham in '69. I spent 20 years in Dillingham, and in Dillingham, I was for some of those years a volunteer librarian, which was really a gas because, I mean, especially in the summer, fishermen would come in and get books and take them out fishing, and they would come back smelling like fish. But it was really, I mean, it was really a kind of a living example of how useful the library was, because the books really traveled and were read and traded around and so on. So that's been a part of my life for a long time. Moved to Anchorage to, I was the director of behavioral health for the state for a while, and I too was looking for a community. For me, this was the big city. After living in Dillingham for 20 years, Anchorage felt like, you know, it has movies, it has bookstores, it has library. So I was trying to, I didn't look it up, but I've been on this board for, I think, at least 6 years. I think I did a 2-term, and was recently reappointed this last fall. So that's my history, and I love the library. It's weird though, because the only thing I'm really acquisitive about is books. So I use the library less than the bookstores because I like to keep them. But we have a lot of those little pop-up libraries in my neighborhood, so I can feel good about redistributing. It's a little awkward to have a conversation like that because we're all over, but if anybody has like questions for each other or anything else to add, this would be a fine time to do that.
How much interaction do you have with other libraries outside of Anchorage? And the reason I ask that is my dad, when I was visiting him in Montana in July, he brought me to the small town library where they just rebuilt the library. So he introduced me to the library director and one of the library board members. And I invited them to come up here and get a tour of our libraries. So I'm just curious.
Absolutely. So outside of Anchorage, and then there's outside of Alaska. And I just so we're all, I don't know how much you all are aware, we are a member of what's called the Alaska Library Consortium. So when you were in Fairbanks and you went to Fred Meyer and bought a book, you could have also gone to the Fairbanks Public Library and used your card. Your card will work in most of the public libraries in Alaska, not Homer. Homer's the big holdout. And if you check that book out at Fairbanks when you're down there, when you're up at Fairbanks, you can return it here when you get done. So we share cataloging and services within our Alaska library. We're really that way. And that because we're sharing a catalog and sharing materials that way, we are in meetings and constantly connected together. But because Alaska, Anchorage is so much bigger than the rest of the state, oftentimes the way that we are approaching issues are so different than many of our other libraries in Alaska. So we are a member of what is called the Urban Libraries Council, which is a really, really great one. And obviously they consider Anchorage urban. And they have a lot of like sub-member groups. So I am the acting director right now, but I am normally the assistant director of public services. And so I'm in what's called the deputy directors group. And so once a month, we have a Zoom call and members can suggest topics. Lately, we've been talking a lot about security. And we also, there's a different group they call them education leaders, which are the head of youth services. There's another one for adult services. There's one for community service for the marketing person. So all of like our different people have a chance to hear and learn from their peers at other urban libraries across the country. And it's one of the most valuable tools we have as to really like those members. And there's listservs. This year, we've also been really refocusing on travel and training with staff. So myself and 2 other staff members attended the Public Library Association conference, which is a great conference. American Library Association conference. It's too big and it's academic and public and school. It's everybody. It's not a very helpful conference, actually. The Public Library Association is just public libraries. And that's only held every 2 years, unfortunately. So we learned a lot of great things. So, and then the great thing about being a librarian is because we're not selling anything, we don't keep secrets. So a lot of times if I'm curious about something, I just start searching around, and then I have no problem calling up libraries halfway across the country and being, hey, I see you're online, you're doing this program. Can you tell me about it? And they almost always tell you cheerfully about it. Did that mostly get to answer the question?
Yeah,
Also,
thank you.
actually, just to say that the board has a tradition of actually conducting these meetings at branch libraries. I can't remember the ones we did last year, but anyway, the ones that are drivable, we do 2 or 3 a year where we get to meet the staff at the other libraries and check them out and things like that. So,
Oh, that'd be great. I
it's great
That's
fun.
awesome.
get to the other ones, so
Yeah.
that would be good.
You'll have to now.
Okay.
Who spoke?
That's great.
Okay, well, if we've not got anything else for this portion, this is the place in the agenda where if people have come in and wish to address the board, we allow them to do that. As far as I know, nobody's either signed up or called in for that. How would they even know we're having a meeting particularly?
It didn't get a very long public notice, no.
Exactly. So Elizabeth, I think you're on to
So-
bring us up to date.
Obviously, a lot has happened. I mean, you have our monthly reports going back about 6 or 7 months, and I'm going to try to go through some of the highlights. The first quarter of the year, January, February, March, we do what we call Winter Reading Challenge, which is really run by our adult services and is one of our banner programs. And you get these really cool bingo cards and kit people. It was very 90s themed this year, really grabbing that millennial nostalgia. So anybody who completed a full thing was eligible to get a free pizza, a little personal pan pizza, but from not as much from Pizza Hut. Like at Eagle River, they bought them from Pizza Man. They bought them from Coast Pizza there at Girdwood. They tried to make sure it was somewhere in their neighborhood. And we were definitely calling, being like, will you sell us gift cards for just the personal pan pizza? And everyone had a ton of fun with that. It was, people love doing their bingos. The challenges are like, read a mystery, read a book with a bunny on the cover, read a book with and so, participation in that this year was up 91% from last year. And I unfortunately don't have the numbers written down for what number that is, but it was a huge increase. It was not quite a double. It was 91% of people who signed up for it. And then, but the completion rate was even higher. So we were thrilled with that. In April, I'm so sorry.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
a thing, and I loved it this year. That the bingo was fun.
Thanks. Yay. Well, and it'll come back again in January. It's always a really great way to, if you put, when reading more on your New Year's challenge. And then in April, we did our annual staff day, which was actually our first one since COVID. And this is a chance where we do close. It's the only time we do it once a year where we close all of our locations and bring in all of our staff and do training. This year we focused working with staff and a consultant to get ready for our new strategic plan. Our strategic plan did expire. And so our goal is to write a new strategic plan by the end of the year. We will have someone come in maybe at next month's board meeting, have the consultants come in and talk to you all about like grabbing your insights to be incorporated within that. So I will work on getting that scheduled as well. And then of course, we would bring it to you. We'd come first at the next meeting for your insights and then bring it to you in December for adoption, hopefully to get us going in January with a new strategic plan is our goal.
In that regard, I mean,
Yeah.
great. I'm glad to hear that's being approached. when you read all your packets that you might not have had a chance to read, really a primary function of this board is a planning and advising board. So the strategic plan that is currently expiring or expired
It's expired in 2023.
was a project, it's a year-long project at that point anyway, at the board. So, and that's, Megan, you mentioned your interest in kind of engaging with community. That is very much an engaging with community effort. So I'm really looking forward to hearing about that next month.
And one of the things we will probably also have for next month is this board usually it's not approving the policy, but endorses or does not endorse the policy. And one of the things that's very exciting about this board, it's a wide variety of professions, of people, of like life experiences. And so that you can look at a policy in a way that's very different than someone who lives in the library every day. And that you can see sort of how, as a member of the public, you would interact with it. And so we have a number of policies we have been working on rewriting. Unfortunately, with the short notice of that we would be holding this meeting, we didn't. And I will admit, I was also, you all, our two new members were appointed Tuesday evening, and then I was out Wednesday through Friday of last week. So that's why I apologize. You got many of this very late. So
that's okay.
Yeah.
And so we will hopefully for next month have some new policies for everybody to look at.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? Would it be possible, or maybe this is in materials we already have, to see some of the past strategic plans ahead of when we're talking about strategic plans next month?
Yes, I can absolutely send the strategic plans.
Thank you.
Good idea.
I will do that. Absolutely. I have my notes, and so mostly somewhat trying to go order, but not as much. As also in April, as I mentioned, I personally went to the Public Library Association, and I found that the number one topic that I was discussing, and I went to a number of like meetings and plannings, especially with people working at that deputy director, assistant director level, was safety and security and the library. And every issue that we are dealing with in Anchorage is being dealt with nationally. And so in some ways that was really reassuring. And what I heard over and over recommended was a group called Crisis Prevention Institute, and they are a training course for the on verbal de-escalation. Mm-hmm. And they focus on public spaces, health, libraries, schools, and like health institutions. And it was going to be $30,000 to bring one of their trainers up to train all of our staff. But for $4,000, we were able to have one of our staff trained as a certified trainer.
Oh, wow.
And right, it was a very different number. And so one of our staff has now been trained as a certified verbal de-escalation trainer. It's our facilities manager. His name is Brendan Farrell. And he had actually came to us after 20 years with Hope Community Resources, where he had done very similar work. So he had actually been a previously certified in a different curriculum for de-escalation. So he's an expert for this. And he started at the beginning of August, after he got through the training, his certification in the summer. And we've trained 5 groups of staff now. And he is training all of our staff who are front facing, and they should all be trained by the end of October in verbal de-escalation tools, with the idea that this is another tool to help them. Not that we are, requiring our staff to go into uncomfortable situations. We still do have security at our buildings. They still, of course, have the ability to interact with law enforcement and call them in as appropriately needed, but this is another tool. And we've also been talking to the city, because we are sort of one of the leading departments on this, about also therefore extending that to other city departments for this training as well. So it was when we did our staff day in April, as I said, we did a lot of internal trainings. We had trainings on readers advisory, some very specific library things, as well as our strategic. It was not all strategic plan, but the number one training that we'd been asked for in April was for de-escalation. And so while we could not get it into staff day, we are now doing it. And like I said, we did a bunch of other trainings in April around early literacy. We spent about half the day on the strategic plan, and the other day as peer experts, our staff members training their coworkers on what they are experts on. So it was a really great day.
Is this called MENT training or is it something?
It's not Mint. Actually, Mint was what he was previously trained in, and it is now, it's Crisis Prevention Institute, if you want to look it up, and they call it verbal de-escalation. So our staff has been very receptive and very excited about this training. So May kicked off our summer discovery, which winter break reading at the beginning of the year is our biggest thing for adults. So families and children often and are excited to join. Summer discovery is primarily focused on the youth, but families and adults are always joining. It kicks off with Reading Rendezvous, our big festival outside. It was a little bit gusty, but we still received 2,300 people.
Good.
And signed up 1,200 people for summer discovery on that one day. There's just about under 4,000 people who signed up for summer discovery over the course of the summer. Traditionally, we report those numbers out at the September meeting. And often if we have a mission moment, I would bring in my youth services librarian to talk about all the great things that happened over the summer, our youth services coordinator. And we had just some amazing programs and events happening over the summer. Unfortunately, also over the summer, our previous director, Virginia McClure, had been working with her mother who has sudden rapid onset dementia, and it was no longer going to be tenable for her to work as both a library director and provide the care her mother needed. So she left us about a week into July. I have since then been acting director. I can also say that 10 days ago, the position posted online. So the position is open. I can see that people are applying, but I can't see who it is. I can just see in the software that people are applying, which is very, very exciting. So we are hopeful that that process will go forward in the next couple months to bring in another library
It
director.
was only posted 10 days ago.
Posted 10 days ago. It just took a little while to get it posted, to get all the right buttons and things pushed.
HR stuff.
HR stuff. So that is ongoing as well. Another very exciting thing that we are working, that just went live, that we will be advertising a little bit later in the fall, is we added Legal Depot law forms to our Overdrive Libby service. So if you go through there, you can actually, and I don't know if you've ever like come and checked out the NOLO law forms where you can like, that's legal forms for landlords or all of those things. Or if you're preparing your own will, or your own power of attorneys. Anyways, you can get all of those forms, check them out electronically. We just added that service to our Overdrive Libby. We're really, really excited about that.
That's awesome.
To come. We are also currently working in our Alaska room. We have done our 65%, and we are working towards the 95% review drawings from the engineers of the redo of the Alaska room. And I know, I believe, Mrs. Bronson, you came to one of our open houses, and I know, Rachel, you also came to an open house and saw some of those drawings.
Yeah, I came as well.
And Mark came as well.
Yeah.
Yes. So we actually had a meeting today, and they were showing me colors of finishes and things, and it was very exciting.
Oh, that is exciting.
It is.
Yay.
Yay. So we have the funding for that. We have the insurance from the flood of the original one. We have a bond that was passed many years ago, and we are learning a lot about the bond process, number of which is try not to pass bonds before you have final numbers of what things will actually cost, which is the mistake that happened here. And we also have an NEH grant for it. Unfortunately, those 3 sources are not enough funding to bring the project all the way through. The Anchorage Library Foundation is started a capital campaign for it and has begun to apply for a Rasmussen grant for that as well. So while we're going to get the finalized drawings from the architects, we do not have a firm start construction date until we have more of those funds raised, unfortunately.
So they're applying to Rasmussen?
They're applying to a Rasmussen grant. They will be turning in, for our new board members and for everyone else, we have 2 fundraising groups. The Friends of the Library fundraise for collections, for programming, and then a little bit for marketing of collections and programming. This year, the Friends of the Library gave $150,000 to the library. That covered all of our programming expenses, everything from crayons at story time, all the way up to author visits to performer fees. They gave initially 100,000, and then they were able to give an additional 50,000. That additional 50,000 they gave at the beginning of the summer was what allowed us to secure the funding for those legal forms that I mentioned earlier as a collection item. And also for Mary Roach, who is coming in September 17th. Mary Roach is a nonfiction author who writes like popular science books and explains science really well for those of us who did not do science as our education.
And she's really, really good.
And she's so funny. And so that additional funding from them this year allowed us to secure her. So we're very, very excited about that. And if you want tickets for it, they are free, but we're expecting them to go very quickly. So they're going to go right after, I think it's Tuesday after Labor Day that they go live. And
Can I ask a question real quick?
Absolutely.
What is, if anything, the relationship between the boards of the Friends of the Library, the Library Foundation, and the Library Advisory Board?
We are sisters in a way. We have, I was going to say often, I think we always have at least one annual meeting of the three boards to sort of share information and strategy. I remember when we were doing the other strategic plan, there were cross efforts with those bodies. Our functions are different. There was an effort actually 10 years ago, I think, to have the two fundraising bodies maybe merge, but that was not seen as either a viable or popular opinion. And we're the advisory board, so we're kind of distinct from the function of those other boards. But we have, we've also, actually, the chairs of the boards, myself and the two other people in the last year met several times just to discuss library, kind of in a casual way to discuss library business. I think we should have more. I mean, it's certainly three groups of people who are clearly passionately interested in supporting the library, and I think the more kind of cross communication, the better. Is that so? I think that's the answer is an open answer. It could be, we could also several times either one or both. I'm pointing to this side of the room because that's where guests are, and they have come to this meeting, and I've gone to some of theirs. So there's that kind of. Also the fundraising, the Beyond the Stacks. You want to talk a little bit about those?
Yeah. So as I said, the Friends primarily fundraise for collections, programs, and then a little bit of advertising of those. And they do those through the 2 annual book sales, one of which are always the first weekend in May and the first weekend in November. And they also do so through an annual fundraising gala dinner called Beyond the Stacks, which is usually around April. Yeah. And then the foundation does larger funding for, they're the ones that often act our fiscal agents for our various grants, as well as do a lot of the more capital projects, long-term processes. They hold the trust for the downtown library. They this year they've done less direct funding. They usually do some direct funding within the library. They've done less this year as they were gearing up for the big capital campaigns. But they did within the last year. They donated some of the money to bring back the digital collections up higher. They've donated in this year funding for new furniture for a teen area at the Eagle River Library, and then the touch and play little kid panels. They replaced several of those, and they have more of them on order at multiple locations. I think they've already replaced them at Eagle River, and the Lusac ones are on order, as are another location. So, yeah. And I think usually for the big, the Beyond the Stacks, the gala, those invitations go out to all boards even though it is hosted by the Friends event.
Right.
And I hope, I think so I mentioned about Mary Roach, and I just alluded to the downtown library. That got very complicated with lawyers. And that the trust for the downtown library, as a bit as a background information, Mrs. Getz was a longtime downtown resident, and when LUSAC moved from downtown to this location in 1986, she was very frustrated by the lack of a downtown library, and then left a large trust to fund a downtown library within the Anchorage Old Town site. The previous administration has identified the best source site for that as Old City Hall. And the trust within the foundation has also been matched by, under the previous administration, they advocated for, and we received a $2.5 million state grant to additionally help. That trust is to both fund the renovation and construction costs, as well as the operations of that facility for 10 years. Is sort of the outline requirement of both the state grant and the trust. Unfortunately, like getting the legal agreement to get the money from one place to the other I understand that it's really close. I understand that the lawyers are on final drafts. So I'm hopeful that within the next month or so, we'll see that go in front of the assembly. And at this point, it's been a little stalled out under municipal code. I'm really excited that you're joining us, Mark, with your engineering background, because I am not an engineer, but I'm learning a lot. Under municipal code, a capital project manager cannot be assigned to the project until funding is in the municipal coffers, because they don't bill ever to operating budget for the municipality. They are only ever allowed to bill to a project, a capital project fund. So we have not been able to engage within our city's capital project managers to really shepherd this project forward as far as, especially we'll need some engineering surveys. Old City Hall is a lovely building. It is from the 1930s and is going to need some level of work. And what that will mean is unknown until a capital project manager can be assigned and can really start engaging with engineers and outside things. So they've already assigned somebody, and he is ready to go as soon as, if an assembly passes it on a Tuesday, I have every confidence that on Wednesday morning, he'll get us started. So
it's not a matter of acquiring funds for it now.
Not at this time. I believe there is sufficient funds. I think we may have a conversation about what staffing looks like. And that is a conversation for probably 2026, when we are looking at opening it, and what the funding requirements from what percentage of the trust we need to draw to adequately staff, or other options, if there are other grants or whatever that would manage for the staffing and operations. At this point, it is lawyers and agreements. So
it's really closer than I thought, though.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds.
Yes, and there is a deadline from the state grant of 2026, which is why that is the number we are working on.
I can say I used to love having a downtown library, so I'm fully on board helping with that.
We are very excited to hopefully bring that back up. It is. But yes, but the Alaska Room and our downtown library are our big two capital projects. We did turn in our budget to the new administration, and we had our meeting earlier today where we presented why we were asking for what we were asking. There never is any indication. I say never. I've been to 2 of the meetings now. As far as like, they're very close to the chest, as far as like, they don't say, oh yes, we'll give you all the money, or no, you get nothing. They don't tell you that at a meeting. They pay it close to the chest. But we did submit our request, and we also submitted a singular capital project. Well, it's 2 capital projects in one, which would be a bond if the mayor chooses to move it forward, and then also the assembly chooses it to move it forward. The 2 bonds that we asked for are the New carpeting at Eagle River. Eagle River Library opened in 2009. It's an incredibly well-used space, and the carpet is 15 years of public use. And then the other one is for new windows for the Lusac Library. Many of them leak. There are places where we just put like trash cans under them, especially some of the skylight in the youth services area is infamous around that. There's condensation between the double panes of them as well. So new windows, which would be energy efficiency and reduce our overall bills, as well as stopping leaks. There are sections of the library we're not there's a few areas we've stopped shelving books in because of leaks. We have tried within the last couple of years to do a number of these style of projects without necessarily doing capital bonds. Within the last year, we have pulled together the funding for an HVAC board. Our HVAC in this library is literally programmed by cassette tapes and pneumatic tubes. And we were able to transfer unspent labor from a year when we had a lot of vacancies into a capital project fund. And that new board is supposedly on its way and will be installed soon. And unfortunately, because of the HVAC control issues, and every time the power blips, we have to go reprogram it with the cassette tapes. Not me, I say we, the facilities department. I am not reprogramming the HVAC system. But they there's been several leaks over books from condensation and pipes and things that aren't actually were tied to the windows. So we have leaks coming from the windows, but we also have leaks coming from the pipes because of the HVAC system. Condensation issues around it not working. So we're hoping that the first side, that the ones from the HVAC system will be controlled. Like I said, we were able to use some unspent labor for that, which we were very excited about. And then the second one, we are really hoping for those new windows.
So we haven't had a lot of luck with bonds
We
in the
haven't.
past. So does the library need any?
We will undoubtedly be talking to you about assistance around the bonds, but again, at this point, we've submitted them to the administration, and it's the decision of the mayor if they move them forward to the assembly, and this is the decision of the assembly if they move them forward onto the budget.
Yeah.
So onto the ballot in April. So that is still.
So it's sort of a ways away, but
Yeah.
it comes faster than we
It does.
think. So, right, so you'll keep us posted.
I will keep us
about that.
posted. There was one library advice bond in 2014 that we lost by 12 votes. And I might remember that one until I might go to my grave talking about those 12 votes.
Have,
Do you
have,
remember what that was?
I don't.
Yeah.
have you
Yes,
all,
go ahead.
have you all looked into, or are you aware of that? There's the nonprofit energy retrofit program that's being run by Alaska Heat Smart, based on a Department of Energy grant that came through the infrastructure bill that is supportive of like energy efficient retrofits. And given what you're talking about with the energy savings of the windows and the HVAC and so forth, it might be another funding mechanism for the project that you're talking about. I don't know if you all would be eligible because it's for nonprofits specifically, but through the foundation, you might be eligible.
And we have done that several times where we apply through the foundation instead of through sometimes it's more beneficial to apply as a government agency and sometimes as a nonprofit. And we feel as though both. But yes, thank you. I will look into that. Thank you.
Sounds like a good fit.
Yes. So that is because I gave you an entire packet of updates. You also see that included a bookmark around the Mary Roach visit, as well as a flyer about, this is what goes actually out from the Anchorage Library Foundation. It's the library impact report for the summer. And it talks about those new databases. I mentioned the legal, I forgot to mention, we also added transparent languages in Transparent Languages is a really, a new language. It was also part of that Friends of the Library funding, and it is a language database for language learning. So that people can access for free as well now. And so, yeah, there are all sorts of things. And if you do have a chance to look through, Deborah, I thought you might like that the last report, the one that was for this month, there was a little girl who chose to spend her birthday at the library, which I thought you said that about your daughter. So I thought that was really fun. We have a little girl who came to the library to one of the summer programs for her birthday.
I find it interesting. It's seldom boys.
You know, I don't know what that is. We always joke.
I know.
I always joked with the youth services when I was the youth services. I was the youth services coordinator before I was the assistant director. And I would always joke that our teen boys were like stealth readers, that I could look up the numbers and I could tell that they were reading, but we never saw them. And because they would get in, get their books and get out without ever interacting with a staff member. Ninjas. Every now and then you catch them
I'm
up.
not surprised about that.
I told Elizabeth that I rode up in the elevator just an hour ago with, I think, a 10 or 11-year-old girl. She just had to go down and rode up with me one floor. And she said, she started the conversation. She said, I've only been in this library for 3 months. And I said, yeah, really, do you like it? And she said, oh, it's the best thing there is. That it was so all encompassing. It's such a great kind of reminder of why we're here.
I did want to also say that one of my jobs as the staff liaison to this is any information that you would want, I can get. We've gotten excellent suggestions in the past. Doug had asked, a former board member had asked if, sorry, it was Dennis, not Doug. He had asked about how many incidents we were having that resulted in people being trespassed or graffitied, and that information was added to our monthly reports based off of his request. So we're always very interested in knowing, because these are also shared publicly. And if you all want to know, members of our public will want to know, we typically bring in a staff member as a guest once a month. And so if there is a specific question or program you would like to learn more about, I will find the right staff member to join us. Usually, as I said, in the next month or two, we would have the youth services coordinator join us to talk about all the great things that happened over the summer. And then we would also have our budget coordinator to come and talk to us about what the budget that has been proposed by the mayor or the assembly, what that would mean for the library. So the budget coordinator can also join to talk to us in like January is about how we spent 24, I guess, and then how we'll spend 25, whenever you would prefer to have that. So.
I had a question.
Yes.
And then open it up. And this is because my partner's a lawyer, partly, but also because I once got in trouble because I used an online form generating legal to write a will that then didn't have all the dots and the i's and the t. Anyway, my question is, this sounds like a great service. You were talking about the law forms, and is there, I don't know exactly what I'm asking, a warning that maybe, actually asking for legal assistance might be warranted, or?
I have not looked at it.
Those mistakes myself.
I have not looked at it to see if it says, this is okay for just like the, for the simple things. I just did power of attorneys with my parents. I made them sit down with me, actually over Christmas. I made them sit down with me and everyone signed power of attorney in case of medical emergency. Mm-hmm. And that is a very simple straight face form, and we got it, and so I don't know how much. I haven't used the service yet, so I don't know what sort of warnings. I would imagine it has some sort of disclaimer. I can look into that and get back to you.
Yeah, okay.
But yes, some of them are easy and some of them are more complicated.
It was my own fault, but I got burned by using a $35 online form. So you've heard a lot of information board members have questions,
We
comments?
spent a little more time talking about the strategic plan.
Sure.
Absolutely.
I thought I heard you say that by December you were hoping to approve the strategic plan.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
that's kind of a lot to absorb and make happen by then. I didn't quite catch the answer to where can we find copies of previous strategic plans?
I will email them to you.
Oh, okay, great. That'd be great homework for, at least for me. I can read before the next meeting.
Yeah, and
One was on the website too.
the most recent one is still on the website.
Yeah, that's easy enough. If there's a
Yeah.
place to find them, like,
On the website, and I'll get you that one and probably the one previously. The most recent one went 2019 to 20 or 2020 to 2023 or 2019 to 2023, somewhere in there.
so there's typically 3 or 4 year.
Yeah, we typically give you 3-year ones. Yeah. So, the most recent one is on the website. In December, having it ready for adoption was our goal. Of course, we are also going to bring in a new director. And I've sort of been unofficially saying, maybe by Thanksgiving, that would be lovely. So it'll be a matter of if that person wants to put a pause on it and look more carefully, or if they want to go with it. So, but yeah.
Without knowing anything else, my
Yeah.
thought is that we want to make sure we do it right. So if that
Absolutely.
takes an extra month, that, I
Absolutely.
mean, that's just my gut feel.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and yes, and previous plans, like I said, I mean, took years in the making to get community input and things like that. So, so I'm wondering if this is, anyway,
Yeah.
I too am wondering how fast we could do that.
But very much looking forward to the process. So that will be very, very cool.
Absolutely.
If that
And
includes
you
a library. Sorry.
Oh, no, just you said that you're bringing in an advisor to talk with us next month. Is that correct?
Yes, provided that works within her schedule. Yes.
Are
We
you
are
guys already? Yeah, I was just gonna say, are you guys already working with her? Or I think it was her last time we talked. Whoever you're working with, are you guys
Yes.
already? Sure. Okay.
Yeah, she has, her name is Annie Thomas Landry. And her company here in town is called Managing Me Consultants. And she's done a lot of work with the state, with other departments of the city and the school district as well. And she has done listening sessions with every small work group of our school, of our own staff, as well as work at the staff day. And I think now we're moving into so we did the talking to our own staff work, and now we're moving into the phase of talking to stakeholders such as our boards and community members.
Okay.
So.
And out of curiosity, so obviously there are risks associated with moving too quickly on a strategic plan, that you're saddled with a document for 3 years that doesn't really represent the strategy that you want. But you've also been operating without any strategic plan for a year now. And so what have been the challenges and sort of the outcomes of operating without one that might create a sense of urgency on and getting one in place?
I think the challenges of operating without one, from a staff perspective, have been the lack of ability to do long-term planning, to set goals. I supervise public services, the adult services and the youth services. And when I meet with the heads of those departments, it helps to say our goals are the reports I give you, those bridging, all of those headers where it says bridging, building community, bridging information and resources. Those are all from our previous strategic plan. And so usually I would say within this area, your goal is to, increase early literacy participation as youth services, because that's aligned in our, it was a really good effort from the last one where we were meeting on a regular basis and looking at those very specific goals and seeing how each department was individually working towards the goals within their parts. And so that, and also coupled with Virginia having to be out so much and then not having a director now, there's just sort of been harder to narrow down goals for staff, and then harder to win. There's been a few times when we've been approached about various grant opportunities or funding opportunities, and it becomes unclear where which of those we want to pursue. We cannot apply for every grant. We cannot go with every, even when community partners, I received a community partner emailed us and said that they were applying for a grant for electronic vehicle charging stations in public spaces and had identified the library. Were we interested? And that's, interestingly enough, not actually fully my decision, as our grounds technically belong to parks. But that it was harder to have those conversations when, not the most recent, but I want to say 2 or 3, the strategic plan that was in place when Mountain View was built talks a lot about energy efficiency. Is that, or is that not still a goal within our strategic plans? Are we investing in that sort of infrastructure, or are we investing in programming and information infrastructure? So, because while they're like, we can get it for you for free, nothing actually ever ends up being free, even when the community partner tells you it will be.
Right.
So I think it's mostly the direction for our staff, for our internal work, and for which partnerships we pursue and which grant fundings we pursue.
So if you have a solid strategic plan from the last, last period, 2019 to 2023 or whatever it was, and we're just needing to tweak it a little, that's not as hard. Not starting from scratch.
It could be just tweaks. It could be starting from scratch. It was written before COVID. And while we are not operating under any COVID protocols, COVID has drastically changed the way the community interacts with the library. In March of 2020, our digital circulation tripled. It has never decreased. I would like to, at a future meeting, bring and show you, we just redid the way we do, the city has us do a report called performance value results, and I can email that as well to you. We do those quarterly. And this quarter, the previous administration had us engaging with Cheryl Frasca, and they did a really amazing job of helping us develop a new template. And so this was the first quarter. For quarter 2, that was the last one we just did, was the first one to use the new template. You can see the goals. And digital, our physical item circulation is maintaining at about the same level, which I actually think is somewhat of a growth because the number of people of Anchorage are decreasing. Population's decreasing, but we're checking out the same books.
Yeah.
So each individual person's checking out more books.
I'm responsible for that.
You might be tied with my children, but our circulation overall is growing because our digital circulation is growing, and it has become a higher percentage every month of what our total percentage. It's coming close to 40% of our total circulation is digital. And so, like I said, people switched in COVID. A lot of people had already switched, but really, really switched in COVID, and many of them never came back. And so I do think there's a value in using our old strategic plan as a starting place. I do think some of those conversations need to be carefully looked at.
And so you mentioned.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Okay. You mentioned staff information groups and that stakeholders are now being talked to. Would we be part of the stakeholders?
Yes,
Okay.
as the library advisory board, yes. Our stakeholders, I think I use that word internally, informally. It's usually to mean the boards of the foundation, the Friends, and the library advisory board is usually who I say for stakeholders.
Oh, so that's, I think of that as internal. So
Yeah.
Is there any outreach into community?
And outreach into community ones? We have started having meetings and discussions. I have met this week, for example, with Alaska Downtown Partnership, some of their staff and groups like that. Yeah.
I have a question that is a new topic. Would it be appropriate now, or does anybody have any more comments on this topic?
I only want to say that I'm really glad to hear the amount of interest in talking about strategic plan, especially given the time frame and so on. So it will encourage us to get materials and talk about it. Go, Megan, change the subject.
Okay. Well, so as a new member, I'm really curious from a staff perspective. Well, I guess I'll start by saying I read the little, the the portion of the municipal code that establishes this body and establishes its purpose. And so, I have a vague sense of what we're here for. But I'm curious from a staff perspective, like, what have been the things that the Library Advisory Board, as a group or as individual members, have been able to do that really support the work that you're doing at the library?
I think one of the best things is honestly an enlarged community perspective, and a chance that forces us to, it's very easy for us to become very internal focused because we are made of careers of being in a library. So when I make a decision, it makes sense to me because I've spent my career working in libraries. And so when I'm standing here and I'm answering the variety of perspectives, I'm excited to research the energy retrofit program you mentioned, the variety of expertise. The last time we did our budget conversation, some of the most insightful questions were from you, Mrs. Bronson, with your fantastic accounting background. She understood numbers in a way that was not covered in library school. In the past, at times either when various things have gone before the assembly, either for budget or for code changes, the Library Advisory Board has been present in those conversations, either doing a testimony or talking to assembly members about their perspective on why the library is making that. Would not ask you to advocate for us, but that you would have your ability to say, from what we understand, the way we've interacted with that. And I will also say that September, this is a little bit of a subject change, but September is library card sign up month. And on September 10th, the assembly should do their annual resolution recognizing library card sign up month. And if you want to tell any of your friends and family who don't have library cards, they can come get the Anchorage Public Library themed duct tape if they sign up for a new library card in September. Because we like to say with duct tape and a library card, you can fix 99% of life's problems.
Well done.
But yes, so I think those have been, and I will also say that I will ask some other staff members. I am new to staffing this board, so I have not had as much of an interaction. It is traditionally staffed by the director. So I will also ask other staff members what their perspectives have been. I would usually just come in once a year to talk my stuff.
And in that regard too, I think we mentioned in passing mission moments, part of the agenda, not this time because there's so much else, but almost every time we meet, there's a mission moment, which basically is bringing in staff from various departments to answer questions we have about those kinds of interactions and from staff perspective, which is how you introduce that. And that's by our request.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, we can drag anybody in here we want for you.
Absolutely. And the policy reviews. And I will also say we will be sending to the assembly later this fall a code change on behalf of the library. Currently, all library fines and fees, and including things like how much we rent our public rooms for, how much we charge for a photocopy, all of those fines and fees are enumerated out in code. So every time we want to raise the charge of a photocopy in the library or lower it, it has to go in front of the assembly, and that is not an efficient use of government time to do that. So we are working to try to, and that should have been updated years ago, to be frank. I'm not really sure why it wasn't, but we are using we're going to try to have it more generic that could be that the library has permission to charge fines and fees as outlined within their policies. So yeah.
That makes sense.
And when we went fine free in 2020, January of 2020, that actually never got updated in the code. So the code still says we charge overdue fines even though
Don't.
we don't. And everyone's, I think they were working on getting it through and then COVID broke out.
Mm.
And the project
Yeah.
just got stopped and nobody ever picked it back up.
Yeah. The reason why I asked the question, I work with a lot of advisory boards, and I know that it can be a lot of work to staff the advisory boards, and I just want to make sure that that you all are getting as much out of me as you're having to put in.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think it was a great question, actually, to sharpen our value, basically, to the library, which is what we're here for. And if we're not asking the question about how we can be more useful, then we're probably less useful. So thanks. Any other questions from Elizabeth's presentation in general, or?
So you said there's typically a guest speaker from someone in the library. Since we'll be working on the strategic plan, do you have anyone who's kind of an expert on the history of strategic plans? Or I just, we request.
Yes, I can. I can bring in people who worked on the last strategic plan, and also the person on our staff leading the strategic plan effort from our staff side is Molly Roche, our budget coordinator, and she can come in and talk about it as well.
Okay,
Yeah,
that'd be kind of cool.
So let's clear up about the next time. You mentioned somebody else who is actually your external.
Yes, and I need to verify with Annie what her schedule and timeline is to see when she'll be available. I'm hoping she's available next month, but yeah.
But what I'm asking is, it sounds like we just generated another possibility. So what would be, trying to think of what would be the most useful person, whether the person that's already been the external facilitator that you've hired or staff person that's coordinating it.
I can, and it might be, the question might answer itself depending on Andy's schedule availability.
Okay.
So yes. So. Yes, and I had mentioned also, our youth services coordinator to talk about summer reading, but then the strategic plan.
That doesn't sound good. Well, and though we're not going to meet for another month, we all are on email. So, I mean, there's ways to communicate between now and then. And certainly packets will be sent out more than a day ahead for the next meeting. And requests to agendize something are also up to the board as well. So.
One more question?
Yeah.
So additional board members, are there more in the pipeline, or how many do you need?
So
I'll just say that I've been in communication with the newly appointed head of boards and commissions, and your two appointments and approvals just happened. That I've been talking to her about past applications that I knew were sort of in the pipeline. And in other words, my understanding from her is it's a 9-member board. So with only 5 people, there's certainly 4 more places to fill. And I certainly want more than 5, because anybody gets sick, we wind up without a quorum again. And we need, for the purpose of the board, we need those numbers. Anyway, she's, I thought, was wonderfully successful at getting you folks appointed and approved in that time. She's working on getting others as well. And that's up to the boards and commissions.
Okay.
And anybody that wants to apply, friends of yours possibly, the boards and commissions website very handily on their front page has an application that I'm sure you both used. So
I was just thinking in terms of if there's big things like the strategic plan being worked on over the next several months, and there's going to be potentially new board members, that we would have to kind of help them get up to speed quickly too.
Yeah, that's a good point. I've been pushing her pretty hard, and she's a very busy person. So continue to hope to have more seats filled by next time.
And if I could do one more thing.
Yes.
My notes were very scattershot, and I apologize again for that. If you are not familiar, Project Anchorage is currently operating as far as, and it is the idea of sort of what Project 80s did in the 80s, but Project Anchorage, the idea of grander visions of what we could do with some larger public investments within the library, not the library. Of course, I want it within the library, but within the community. And while the city is putting together an official list of projects to propose, any member of the citizenry can go onto Project Anchorage's website, read about their project, and the civic leaders behind it. And it's sort of a mixture of both community and business and civic people working together for it to look at some potential, like, you could say, I really think Anchorage needs 14 new jogging trails or a South Side library, or which is what we will be proposing to the administration is both the completion of the downtown library and a South Side library branch.
Can I ask a question about that in terms of, I mean, I was I used to live downtown, and I was very disappointed that there was not a walkable downtown library. I worked downtown even longer and was sad that there was not a library within walking distance, because I really like walking to a library. I was able to do it in other communities where I lived. And also I recognize that every library that's added has a significant annual budgetary increase in terms of staffing, in terms of maintenance, and all of that. And so, how are you all feeling about the proposed expansions to the number of branches that you would have and be managing?
So the downtown library has the operating funds for that included. That, however, will only include like the staff and some of like the things within the building. So some of the administrative support. At that point, one location is a manageable amount more of, because I function also as like the branch coordinator under my public services role. So one more location is manageable. To add in a secondary location like the Southside Library would require obviously the annual investment from the city of staffing, collections, all of the things that go within a library. It would also probably change the way we would need to look at our administrative support, everything from like our marketing people who help send out those messages. And little things come in, things like the courier service right now is optimized for 5 locations. The amount of management and administration that it takes to do that. I think we have not significantly changed our organizational structure in quite a while. And we've changed personnel a lot. And one of my goals is that when we bring in a new director, that we look at our current organizational structure as well as what an ideal one would be and how would we absorb and manage those branches. So right now, I could not open it, even if I had all the money. I don't know that I have the administrative ability to open a South Side and a downtown library in the next 2 years. But I also know that those are 7 to 10 year projects, and that hopefully I can build that up gradually and or look at other efficiencies or other redistributions of workloads to make that happen.
Okay.
So yes, I also grew up with a walkable library, and as someone who currently lives on the South Side, and I'm a little bit sad that, and talking to my neighbors, that my children don't have that option. My children are a little bit like the cobbler's children who go barefoot, in that they never make it to the library. I just bring them home books every day. And so like the once a month, once every 2 months they make it in the library, it's the biggest day.
Yeah, I live in Rabbit Creek, so a Southside library would be amazing.
Yes, so that is one of the things that we'll be talking to City Hall about for Project Anchorage. And we are looking at other options to expand services in a manageable way. We currently have an express library in the Diamond, which is just a remote locker pickup.
Mhm.
And so you can place a hold, we'll send it there. You scan your library card, this little door pops open, everything's checked out to you, and you can pick it up.
Wow.
It's like if you've ever been in a city with like an Amazon locker.
Hmm.
And that is so incredibly popular at our Diamond Mall that
Oh,
we have
interesting.
actually, and it's a modular unit, so you could just buy another like Lego piece that connects to it. And so we're doubling its capacity. That's on order. It should be here very soon because it is such a popular service. One of the things that we hear a lot from our Eagle River community is that because it is often a commuter community, that they have trouble making it before the library closes in the evening, and that Saturdays become very busy. They can't always make it in. And so one of our proposals for the budget that we are hoping to do with a combination of just net zero, not an increase in funding, and a Rasmussen grant we've applied for through the foundation, is to put one of those lockers immediately outside the Eagle River Library doors so that it would be 24 access, 24/7 access to holds,
Great idea.
which is a
That's
really
great.
good way for us to increase access to services without having to hire new staff members.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Where is it in Diamond?
It is over by the Ulta entrance.
Okay, yeah, I know that.
So the entrance over there by Ulta. There's other stores there.
I used to also like the Diamond Library. That was, but of course that big one.
I also like the Diamond Library, but that is, yes, yeah, so.
Location, location, location.
Yes, but it has been a really good way to try and offer back some services to our community. And like I said, it's been very popular. I wanted it over by the ice rink for the hockey families and the ice skater families, but the mall wasn't quite ready to put it over there.
Well, if it's modular.
That's great.
Move it over there some days. It's nice. It is.
This all feels, I don't know, maybe because we haven't had a meeting for 6 months, I'm feeling very optimistic and energized. It's wonderful. And thank you very much, Elizabeth, for picking up a great deal more work than you bargained for a year ago.
I am, it has been a lot of learning, and I am very excited to hopefully welcome in a new director in the next few months. So.
Anything else for the good of the order? Just, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, is there anything that we should be doing to encourage a speedy hiring of a new library director? Or is that something that is really just out of anybody's hands? That
I think at this point it's out of anybody's hands. It's posted, and because we've done paid advertisements on like job boards and things, like we are going to try to like let it run for 30 days to make sure that we've truly wrapped it. So I think we're 10 days into that. So I think at this point, and then I have not been part of a director recruitment before, so I'm not sure how that goes, but but yes, I've seen anything you could do if you, like I said, I think that's, yeah. And
It did seem to take a while to get posted, but I've worked enough with HR.
it I will say that we had it ready to go 4 times and then like something would be wrong and it would have to be pulled. It was, and I'm really good at paperwork, so I'm not sure what happened.
Yeah. Anything else?
Good to meet everyone in person and by Teams.
Yeah, get well soon.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to seeing all or most of you in a month. I'm, like I said, very, very happy and energized right now. And what amazingly, by code, we're supposed to meet from approximately 5:30 to 7, and it is exactly 7 o'clock. So we're pulling it together. Thank you so much for being here. We look forward to seeing you again. You'll be hearing from staff, and I will adjourn at 7.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Oh, are we supposed to second and all?
Oh, you know, I
Do we
have
have a
other
motion?
boards that we never vote on agenda, on adjournment, but I think that's the
Oh,
habit
no,
here.
that's
So
fine. It's just, I
all in
think,
favor
yeah,
of
that's what we've been
adjournment,
doing.
say aye.
All right.
Okay.
Bye. Thank
Nice,
you all so
nice
much.
to hear you all.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Nice
Yes.
to see you. Bye.
Nancy was always